Hey guys, I'm Nathan from Arms and Armor. Today I want to talk to you about Dane axes a bit. We often get asked how people fought with these, especially people who do HEMA are really curious about how to fight with this big axe. It's on the ground right now. And most people haven't held one. And many times they're trying to kind of utilize later sword fighting techniques to think about how to fight with this axe, which may or may not be accurate. So stay tuned. So this is our Type M Dane axe, and it is modeled on examples from the late 10th and 11th century. It is thin and light. Right? It's a big weapon. Right? This thing is huge compared to my hand. It has this giant cutting edge. It also has a point for thrusting and a point for hooking. So, it's a pole arm, but it's much earlier than the kind of late medieval pole arms that we have treatises about how to fight with. And these, we find them archaeologically rather than really historically, which means that no one was writing down how to fight with Dane axes, right? This is hundreds of years before the fechtbuchs and the fighting manuals are actually coming out. So we have representations in art, right? Like the Bayeux Tapestry, these guys in full chainmail, no plate, fighting or charging with these axes, but mostly you see guys being cloven in half and horses getting killed and stuff. It doesn't really tell you anything about the actual tactics and strategy of using this weapon. And when there are stories about people fighting with these, they're like sagas, right? These things are heroic superhero stories about, someone the mighty going out with their great axe and slaying a whole bunch of guys, right? They don't really tell us actually how people were using them. So we've got a few ideas. I've linked a video from Roland Warzecha's group at one of their gatherings where some people are doing some careful sparring with Dane axes, spears, shields, and swords that I think give us some ideas of how this goes. And I want to look at a few of these possibilities here. So I recruited Craig to come in here. These are sharp weapons, so we're going to be extremely careful. We don't have any blunt ones. Clearly, that's a Basilard, not a Viking sword. Close enough. Right? Similar size. And the shield is similar to the size of late Viking period shields when this axe was in use. You also had Norman-style kite shields that were in use. But either way, right? If we assume, based on Roland Warzecha of Dimicator's work, that the way these shields and swords were utilized was essentially by, if I take the sword, right, that you held it, the shield extended. Let's move that way a little bit, back up a little. Right, he held the shield extended instead of flat, right, which enables him to control with the edge my sword. So if you turn your shield, you can push across, or you can turn the shield, right, to control my sword. It gives you a bunch of leverage, right, so that it's similar to later sword and buckler in certain ways, right? It's a dueling system. Now, these axes that are contemporaneous are part of this whole weapon system, right, this whole set. But you have two hands on it, you have a cutting edge, you have a point, and you have a hook, which is really interesting, right? Because all of a sudden, two hands, I have a lot of stability, right? And I can push and turn his shield. I have to be careful because he can come around. I can also, let's back up a little bit. I don't want you to walk onto this, right? But if you get here, if I can get around this thing, I can hook it, right, and grab it. If he starts to pull, he's pulling this right back up into his face, right? So if I pull this and then push, it goes, this point either goes into his face, even if he's armored at the time, right? If he's wearing a nasal helm, doesn't matter, it's right in there. He's wearing chainmail. This point is excellent grip on mail, right? I can really get traction on him. If I push this into his chainmail, I can control his body. And with the hook, if I get it past him, right, I can try and pull it down onto his head or hook him with the back edge of it. And so I assume there was a difference between battle and dueling, but there was a lot of dueling in this period, one-on-one fights. And I think that there's a pretty good case for this being kind of a specialized weapon to control the shield and counter some of the advantages of the shield. In battle, if you had a big line of big dudes with these, it's probably a little more crazy, like you might imagine, just killing dudes. But I think it's equally a finesse weapon. And this thing is, number one, a hell of a deal. Number two, terrifying. And it's really a multi-use weapon for fighting in either unarmored or in mail against really any opponents at the time, especially if you're a big guy. That's terrifying. So check it out. These things are awesome.
And even if I'm on horseback, it's intimidating.
Oh yeah, and you can pull a guy off with this. So just some thoughts. Check out our axes. Hopefully you'll be able to buy them really soon.